Hello, you beautiful people. Today I want to talk about 5 players that I think you need to add from your waiver wire in order to win your fantasy basketball league this year. Before we begin, feel free to like and subscribe, and yeah, let's jump right into the video. Now, these aren't the players that are going to be making an all-star team anytime soon. These are more of the under-the-radar, good stat contributors that a lot of people aren't aware of. So I tried to pick people that were under 50% roster availability in leagues just so you guys would have them available in your league so you can go pick them up if you need to. So the reason the waiver wire is so crucial in fantasy basketball is that if your team suffers an injury or a player goes on a cold streak and you don't think they're going to bounce back, you have nowhere to turn to if nobody will take any of your trades that you're offering because you're trying to rip them off, right? So that's where the waiver wire comes into play. And that takes us right to the first player of our video, and that's DeAndre Jordan of the Brooklyn Nets. So, just as the James Harden trade has thrown off the power balance of the league, it's also thrown the fantasy dynamic off a bit as well. Now that Jared Allen's a part of the Cleveland Cavaliers, that's opened up an insane amount of minutes for DeAndre Jordan, and we all know how selfish he is when it comes to grabbing defensive rebounds. Now that Jared Allen isn't in his way, I don't think there's anything stopping him from going back up to 10 plus rebounds a game, and that's just a solid thing to have a guarantee on when it comes to a fantasy perspective. Now, you know for sure that you're going to get minimum 10 rebounds a game from DeAndre Jordan, so anything he gets on top of that is just bonus points. So if you're in a deeper league, I would definitely recommend picking up DeAndre Jordan just because of the availability might be scarce, and you might as well pick him up now before he starts doing a bit better and people start becoming more aware of his fantasy value. One last thing I want to throw in is now that James Harden's a part of the Brooklyn Nets, he's one of the greatest lob passers in the game, and DeAndre Jordan is going to be the primary beneficiary of that lob passing ability. So yeah, that's definitely going to contribute to a few points for DeAndre Jordan and a few more points for your fantasy team. And now we move on to one of the worst defensive players in the league, and that's Enes Kanter of the Portland Trail Blazers. So similarly to Jordan with a center spot opening up for more minutes now that Allen's gone, Nurkic is pretty much out for the entire season. And as much as that hurts the Portland Trail Blazers and their chances of, winning a title, not that they really had that great of chances because of the Lakers and the Nets, but that just opened up a huge void in their front court that they really only have Enes Kanter to fill. Now, while it might be painful to watch him get abused in the pick and roll, he is an elite rebounder and post scorer in the NBA. And that's really all you need him to do. Like, offensively, he's going to get you fantasy points just because of his post game. He's great at offensive rebounding. And yeah, he's just a really good fantasy player to have. His per 36 minutes were really good this season, and he's honestly going to get probably high 20s in minutes this season. So his numbers are about to skyrocket, and I feel like he's a great player to pick up if he's on your waiver wire. So next up, we have OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors. Now, OG isn't a greatly well-known player just because he's on the Raptors and they don't get a lot of media attention, but he's a really good player. I mean, he's a really solid source of points, rebounds, three-pointers made, and he's also contributing a lot on the defensive end in terms of steals. So if he's available in your league, I would definitely try to pick him up before other people get aware of him. He was a bit more highly rostered than the other players in this video, but he's just a really solid player to have, and I want more people to know that they should go pick him up for their team. Next up, we have Wendell Carter Jr. of the Chicago Bulls. Now, the thing with Wendell is that he's looked really solid in the minutes he's played on the court, but he honestly just hasn't been able to stay healthy enough to translate that into meaningful games played. So when you're picking up a waiver edition, it doesn't really matter if they're that healthy because you can always just drop them and pick up someone else anyway. So with that being said, I think Wendell Carter is a great option if you're in a scarce league that doesn't have a lot of players on the waiver wire, just because, he's a good source of points and rebounds on the Chicago Bulls team that's really struggling right now, but Carter's looked solid in the games he's played, and I think he's a great fantasy player to have if you don't have a lot of other options in your league to pick up. So lastly, we have Gary Harris of the Denver Nuggets. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you know I leave the last player for people that are more serious about fantasy basketball and aren't just the casual fan. So the reason Gary Harris is a good pickup is just if you're in like a 10-man or 12-man league and there's really nothing on the waiver wire because he doesn't offer that much offensive production, and while he's always been a good defender, if he's not giving you anything on offense, he really isn't worth streaming in fantasy. So he's only rostered in about 7% of leagues right now, and I think that's fair because he hasn't really shown that much fantasy value so far this season, but his jumper is going in for the time being, so he can definitely be worth streaming, and if he goes cold again, you can always just drop him and try to pick up someone else. And yeah, I want to thank you guys very much for watching. Leave your waiver wire additions in the comments below, and then I'll tell you what I think of them, and yeah, thank you guys for watching again. I hope you all have a great day.